My name is Neil Liebenguth, and I am here with Stella Ryan, and we are both Assistant Directors of Financial Aid at the University of St. Thomas. And today we're going to be talking about financial aid, affording college, and just giving some common questions that you might want to ask your financial aid counselor. And we're going to do our best to answer some of those questions today too, but give you a good jumping off point for starting the financial aid journey. So the best way to start it is to look at the very basic, which is what is financial aid. Some of you might be going through this process for the very first time. So it is a good idea to start at the bottom and kind of build up from there to see how St. Thomas handles the financial aid process. So financial aid, simply, it's money that a student receives to help pay for college costs. Now there's many different types of financial aid, and we'll go through the different ones that are available. But at the top, it starts with financial aid, and the two main categories within financial aid are gift aid and self-help. I'll break down both of those in a minute here. But within gift aid, there are scholarships and grants, and then within the self-help category is work study and loans. So what is gift aid? Gift aid, might seem pretty obvious, but gift aid is money that is given to a student that the student does not need to repay later or work a job to receive. So it's a gift that's given to the student, and it can come from a number of different sources. The most common type of gift aid, or at least the one that's probably most well known, are scholarships. Now, scholarships, when we use that term at St. Thomas, what we're going to mean by that is gift aid that is merit-based. So it's going to be based off of something in the student's background. So whether that is academic background, their general background, or a talent such as music or athletics or what have you, scholarships are going to be based off of something along those lines. And generally, scholarships will have some sort of application process. We'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit more about that in a minute here. But scholarships, again, are going to be merit-based, based something on the student's background. Grants, on the other hand, are another type of gift aid. So again, money that's given to the student. Grants, when we use that term at St. Thomas, we're going to mean need-based financial aid. So need-based is based off of the FAFSA form, which is another thing I'll talk a little bit more later on in the presentation. But need-based is based off of the student and the student's family's financial situation, that we take a look at that and determine what grants that students might be eligible for. So grants can come from a few different sources. It can come from the federal government, the Pell Grants, their largest grant program. Can come from the state of Minnesota if the student is a Minnesota resident. So a student that graduated from a Minnesota high school predominantly. And grants can also come from St. Thomas as well. So we also offer need-based grants to St. Thomas students based off of financial need. So again, that's going to be based off of the FAFSA, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So self-help, which is that other category that we talked about within financial aid, self-help is money that a student is going to either repay later or is going to earn while working a job while in school. So work study is one type of self-help. So another term for work study would be student employment as well. So by completing the FAFSA form that we talked about, students can be eligible for money from the states of Minnesota or the federal government to earn while a student at St. Thomas. But if you don't qualify for those state or federal work study funds, St. Thomas does have job openings available for all students. And actually, most of our jobs on campus are actually available for all students as well. Work study is the one type of financial aid that students have a little bit more choice over how they receive it. So for scholarships and grants and loans, all of those are going to pay directly to the student's account and is going to go directly towards helping pay for tuition fees, room and board costs, things like that. Work study, a student can choose to have that paid directly to their account to help go towards tuition and other costs. Or a student can choose to have those funds paid directly to themselves, their own bank account, and use that for other personal expenses, just like you would with any other job. So work study offers some flexibility there. Loans is the other common type of self-help. So loans would be money that you borrow now to help pay for your college costs. and you would repay later after graduation with earnings that you're going to be, or with money that you're going to earn by working a job after college. Hopefully that the job that you line up based off of your college degree from St. Thomas. So there's many different types of student loans. The most common would be what are called the federal direct loans. This is the subsidized and unsubsidized federal loans. So these are based off of the FAFSA results. All students qualify for federal direct loans, but the difference between what's called subsidized and unsubsidized is that the subsidized loan has no interest while the student's in school, and then the unsubsidized loan does accrue interest while the student's in school. So we'll get more into that kind of as you work through the financial aid process yourself, but just know that student loans are available directly from the federal government and would be available in the student's name only and not requiring a cosigner or anyone else to sign on to the loan to be approved for it. A couple of other options would be the Parent Plus loan. That's available for parents to borrow to help pay for college costs. This also requires the FAFSA, but would be in the parent's name. And then there's also private alternative loans that are available. So this would be through companies like Sallie Mae or SoFi or Discover. We have actually a list of lenders that our students will borrow through predominantly. And this would be in the student's name, but would require a cosigner. So a lot of different loans available for students to help cover those remaining costs after things like scholarships and grants. So another question that you probably have are what scholarships are available that I can apply for. So the main scholarship at St. Thomas is just called the St. Thomas Scholarship. So the only application process for this is applying for admission. So if you apply for admission, whether that's early action or regular decision, that's your application for the scholarship. So we look at everything within your application for admission to be able to determine how much of a St. Thomas scholarship that we will award you. St. Thomas scholarships are awarded up to $34,000 per school year, and that would be awarded for each of your 4 years at St. Thomas for our 4-year program. So again, it is renewable. Students pretty much just have to stay enrolled as a full-time student, meet a 2.0 grade point average, and then you'll receive that each of your 4 years. So again, no separate application for this. Students are automatically considered if they're admitted to St. Thomas. But we do have additional scholarships on top of the St. Thomas scholarship that students can apply for. So we have ones through our various academic departments. So if you're interested in business or sciences, math and engineering, music, communication, and journalism, there's specific departmental scholarships that you can apply for. You can actually find all of those through the link that's posted here, the link.stthomas.edu/scholarships. If you've applied already too, you can access these applications through your admission portal if you applied through the St. Thomas admission application. These scholarships can range, but they do range up to full tuition. We also have full tuition scholarships available for students from underrepresented backgrounds at St. Thomas too, called the DEAS Scholarship. So it's a really good idea to read through those various scholarships and make sure that you're paying attention to the different deadlines, because some of them come up as soon as the end of November. So it's a good idea to start looking at those and see if there's any good fits for you, because that can really help St. Thomas become even more affordable. And another type of scholarship that students should be applying for as well are what we call outside scholarships. So basically, we call an outside scholarship or a private scholarship anything that comes from outside of St. Thomas, so not St. Thomas dollars. So a high school counselor can be a really great resource for looking for local scholarships that you can apply for. We normally suggest prioritizing outside scholarship applications by looking first local and then moving out to global. So you just have the highest likelihood of receiving a private scholarship from an organization closer to where you live. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply for national scholarships or statewide scholarships too, but just prioritize those applications, because there's only so many hours in the day and only so many that you'll be able to fill out or have time to fill out. Free online searches can be a really good resource for you. So websites like FastWeb or College Board have a lot of great resources to be able to use to search for scholarships. You want to make sure you're filling out your profiles on those so they can help narrow down the best opportunities for you. But don't give out too much personal information. What I mean by that would be things like social security number, and don't pay to fill out scholarship searches. You want to make sure that you're receiving money from the organization, not giving them money. And another good idea, another good possibility with outside scholarships is there's possible matching funds from St. Thomas. So for scholarship programs under the Dollars for Scholars program, or what's called a Page Scholarship program, we have matching funds available. So we don't have funds for all scholarships, but for specific ones, we have some more info in that scholarships link above that you can check out what some of our matching funds are. And then the next step in the financial aid process, so after you've applied for admission, after you've taken a look at some of those scholarships, a good idea to do is then complete the FAFSA. So FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So just like those scholarship applications, you don't want to pay to complete the FAFSA. It is free to complete. It is completed at studentaid.gov/FAFSA. Another shortcut would just be doing FAFSA.gov. That'll still get you right to where you need to go to fill out the FAFSA form. So the FAFSA form collects information about student and parents. So it collects information about how many people are in the household, how many of those people are going to be in college. Also collects tax information, savings, and other assets information for both student and parents. So basically, it gathers all that information about your family, and it calculates it to determine what's called the expected family contribution, or EFC for short. So that's a term that you'll see used a lot. The EFC is what the federal government expects your family to be able to contribute towards the student's education for that school year. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you are going to pay to attend St. Thomas or any other college. But what that does allow our office to do is get a baseline idea of what your financial need is, and then we use that number then to determine things like those grants that I talked about, determine if you qualify for a subsidized loan, determine if you qualify for work-study funds. So it's really important to fill out the FAFSA so we can determine those things and give you the best opportunity to receive as much financial aid as possible. So the FAFSA opened up for seniors, high school seniors. It opened up October 1st. For anyone younger than that, it'll be October 1st of your senior year that you'll have the opportunity to fill out the FAFSA. So you complete a FAFSA for each student, and each student must have what's called an FSA ID, which is your username and password to sign the FAFSA. And then one parent needs to have an FSA ID as well. And just a little tip for setting up those FSA IDs, make sure that you're using separate email accounts. You don't want to do the same one for parent and student because that's going to make it tough to reset those passwords later. You also want to make sure that you're going to use an email that you'll have access to in a year, 2 years, 4 years down the road, because you're going to keep using that FSA ID. So for students, good idea to not use your high school email. Use something, like Gmail or some other free email site. Same with parents, maybe don't use your work email as well. Use a personal free email account to set those up that you'll have access to. So I mentioned that you're going to be supplying tax information. When you fill out the FAFSA, you use 2019 tax information for this current FAFSA that's available for the coming school year. Stella in a little bit is going to talk about what you can do if things have changed since 2019, but when you're filling out the FAFSA, you want to use 2019 tax information. Things like assets and savings, how many people are in the household, that you enter using the day that you're filling it out, so what those amounts are for the day that you're filling it out. So if you fill it out today, you're looking at October 27th as the day used for savings and assets and household information, but 2019 for the tax information asked for. One way to make that really easy on yourself is to use the IRS data retrieval tool. It'll say link to IRS as an option for both parent and students in the respective financial information sections of the FAFSA. So we really encourage using that make sure that your information is accurate. It actually pulls that data directly over from your tax return from the IRS right onto the FAFSA. And it also reduces your likelihood of being selected for what's called verification, which isn't the end of the world, but it does mean that you'd have to supply some additional paperwork to our office. So we like to try to reduce that as much as possible. So filling out the IRS or filling out the FAFSA with the IRS data retrieval tool helps reduce your likelihood of that. But it's still a good idea to have that tax return ready with you, have your W-2s from 2019 ready with you, because there are some other questions that you're going to need that information handy for you. And that way you don't have to go back later and fill out the FAFSA or finish filling out the FAFSA. But normally, give yourself about a half hour to an hour to complete it. Most families are able to do it themselves within that time. Otherwise, if you do have trouble with it, feel free to reach out to our office. We're happy to help with this process. Sometimes high schools will also offer FAFSA filing nights. I know in our virtual world that we live in now, that might be a little rarer than it used to be, but sometimes they still have opportunities that way. So reach out to your guidance office too. They can be a great resource for this. And so another question that comes up often is, what should I do if I cannot file the FAFSA? So most students are able to file the FAFSA, and if you can, that's the application for financial aid that you want to complete. If you're not eligible to file the FAFSA, so whether you are undocumented or underdocumented, there are still opportunities to apply for financial aid for you. Specifically for Minnesota residents that aren't eligible to file the FAFSA, the Minnesota DREAM Act application is available. And essentially what this is a kind of shorter version of the FAFSA, just that helps determine Minnesota State's financial aid program. So the Minnesota State grant that I mentioned before, Minnesota also has a private loan option called the Minnesota Self-Loan, helps determine that. And St. Thomas can also look at this for potential grants as well. So it's important, if you're not able to file the FAFSA, to complete the Minnesota DREAM Act application. The website is right at the top of the screen there. That's the ohe.state.mn.us website. We can help you with this too if you think that you are a good candidate to complete the DREAM Act application. But the basic requirements are that you attended a Minnesota high school for 3 years or more. You graduated from that Minnesota high school or earned a GED in Minnesota. And then for male applicants, you still have to register for what's called selective service. You also have to do that if you're filling out the FAFSA too. I won't go into that today, but that's pretty easy. There's just a register me option for that. So again, you don't need to fill out the DREAM Act application if you're eligible to file the FAFSA, but if you're not eligible to file the FAFSA, DREAM Act application is a great option for state residents. And then my last question that I'll answer before handing it off to Stella is a common question. Should I file the FAFSA even if I don't think I'll get anything? So my answer for that is always yes, period, file the FAFSA. So I can say 100% at St. Thomas, filing the FAFSA can only potentially help you find additional sources to help pay for college. It won't hurt you at all from a financial aid point of view. At the very, very least, all freshman dependent students qualify for $5,500 in federal loans, again, in their name only. So at the very least, qualify for an unsubsidized loan, but that's kind of the baseline. You potentially can qualify for more from there. And oftentimes I'll have families that are surprised by what they receive. Again, I mentioned St. Thomas we do have our own need-based grants as well. So even if you don't think you're going to qualify for state or federal grants, definitely send the FAFSA, because we will look at all students that are admitted and send us their FAFSA. We'll look at all students for potential additional grants on top of scholarship funds. Keep in mind, more than just income is considered too. So I often get this question, what's the minimum that I get, or what's the minimum, that I can make or maximum I can make and still qualify for? It's more complex than that. So the FAFSA does look at things that, like, how many people are in your household, how many of those people are in college, so specifically the dependents in that household, how many are in college. So those are all things that get considered. So again, especially if you have multiple students that are going to be in college, even if you didn't qualify for aid for that first one, potentially, definitely send that FAFSA again for, number 2 or number 3, because your financial need goes up that way. So, and then if we have your FAFSA on file and something, hopefully not, but something changes, we can make adjustments to the FAFSA to reflect those things. And Stella is actually going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's another reason. So if we have your FAFSA on file already, that makes that process that much quicker that we can make those adjustments. So with that, I will hand it off to Stella.
Thanks, Neil. So if we go to the next slide, yep, this is basically kind of what Neil touched on. So what can you do if your family's financial situation has changed? So the FAFSA is going to use prior tax year, so 2019 income information. And especially now with the pandemic, we have a lot of families who their 2020 income is completely different. So for this, what you should do is first complete the FAFSA with 2019 information. Then you would come to us and kind of contact your counselor about what we call a special circumstance process. Usually this would open in January for the students that are incoming for the fall. So this January for fall starting 2021. And your counselor can work with you on like what kind of supporting documentation you would need. A lot of times families will wait till they finish their 2020 taxes as well so that they can submit that to us. But I usually say just talk to your counselor because every family situation is going to be different and we can really help you work out what you need to submit to us. And kind of down below, we list out some of the situations that we'll look at for a special circumstance. So it is a reduction in income, medical, dental expenses paid out of pocket, private education expenses, K through 12 for your other dependents, and then changes in your household size, which kind of typically can be if you had like a divorce or separation after you completed the FAFSA. Some kind of common things that I get asked about that we can't look at would be like personal debt, things like a mortgage payment or a car payment. And then if you have 2 children in college, that is actually already going to be taken into account on the FAFSA. So we wouldn't look at those expenses from having that second child in college. But if you're not sure, just ask. And no one size fits all with families on this, and definitely understand that. All right, so this time of year, a lot of people are asking, how can we estimate our costs right now? We're trying to compare schools. Where do we look? And that is the best place to go is our net price calculator. It's at stthomas.edu/net price. And any school that offers federal aid has to have this available on their website. So it is a good way now for you to go in and compare different schools' costs. What it's going to do is it's going to ask you questions that are similar to the FAFSA. So income information, family size information, GPA, and then it is going to pull out for you an estimated net price and an estimated total grant aid based on your answers to those questions. It's also going to list that expected student loan eligibility that Neil had been talking about, where if you do the FAFSA, you get the $5,500 in student loans. So this net price calculator is making the assumption that you're going to complete the FAFSA. You can also see it will give you a box where it has low, average, and high estimated net price for you, just kind of to give a little bit more of a variance for you. Even though it is an estimated award, there's still variance within that. And then you can also tell by the amount of times we say estimated on here that this is just for estimation purposes at this point in your search. It is completely different than what we would call your actual award offer. Then that would have the hard numbers after we've reviewed everything. And that kind of brings us into our next slide. Yep, and that's what is an award offer when I say that. So for us, and for most schools, it's going to be the combination of your FAFSA data and your admissions application and that St. Thomas scholarship that Neil had touched on. So every school's award offer is going to look a little different. Some are offered online, some are mailed, some are both. we have historically done it both ways, by mail and electronic. And it's always going to be available though in the student's online portal, which we call Murphy Online. So this award offer is really how you're going to start to drill down on your out-of-pocket costs for a school by taking the direct costs and then the gift aid and subtracting out the gift aid and getting your kind of net cost, or out-of-pocket cost is the verbiage we would use. When comparing different award offers, I usually tell families to kind of keep an eye on where the student loans are listed and where the work study is listed, because sometimes it will be included in the gift aid section and sometimes it'll be separated out. And usually I save those kind of after you do the calculation for your out-of-pocket cost, just because that is borrowed aid and earned aid. So it is a little different than just gift money, which again, Neil kind of touched on early when we define gift money, just that the aid that you don't have to pay back and you don't have to earn. We also publish a notification of award guide every year to kind of go hand in hand with our award. And that is just really detailed on what it means, how you can estimate your bill, where to go from here on applying for loans, and just any fund that could be listed on your award, it helps define. So that is also something that once a student gets their award offer, we make sure that they're going and looking at the notification award guide as well. All right, so when will I receive this information? Because we've kind of gone over a lot of things and it's easiest if you kind of see a full senior year timeline, I think. So as Neil said, the FAFSA will open October 1st for the following year. And then we usually say that the priority deadline is December 1st. And that's really just so that you can have that full financial aid offer by mid-January. The early action application deadline is November 1st. And if you apply by then you would have your admission and scholarship decision by December 15th. That kind of leads into early in the year, usually around January through April. That's when we're talking with families, when we'd be meeting with you about if you have a special circumstance, what will your bill look like, help you do those calculations. And then the reply date we target for usually is May 1st. And that means you have to have your deposit in by May 1st. All right, so kind of a final, who should I contact with more questions? Because we know all families will probably have more questions. So here at St. Thomas, the way we do our financial aid counseling is you are assigned a personal financial aid counselor when you apply, and then that's who you would have for your whole time at St. Thomas. So it's really nice to kind of, you get to know us, we get to know you, we know your situation, and I find it to be a really enjoyable experience just because you kind of have that personal connection with the student. Up at the top, I have our email and our phone for our general office, and they could get you in touch with who your personal counselor would be if you just reach out to them. There's also, if you wanted to schedule a personal visit appointment, stthomas.edu/visit is where you'd want to go for that.